Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. I'm with Liz Trotter. Our guest today is Chris Schwab. Hey, Chris, this is Smart Business Moves.
Hey guys, it's great to be back. I always love our conversations, so I think this is going to be a real fun one.
Me too. I love having you here.
So we were chatting just before we went live and trying to figure out the last time Chris did Smart Business Moves. And we believe it was like 2 years ago.
I think so. Yeah.
It
Memories
doesn't
hate.
seem like that.
I know it doesn't. But last time we talked to him, it's true. He was not married yet. He was still here. He was still not in Japan with his wife, right? So like things have changed. What's changed?
Well, it's so funny, like we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary now, but we're a very chill couple. So it feels like we're still learning the whole husband-wife thing, and we're still transitioning slowly from boyfriend-girlfriend to husband-wife. So the paperwork changed, but our relationship is still really good, still really like wholesome, I guess you could say, and we still have like the same kind of dynamic, but we appreciate each other a lot more because we're apart so long. So now like every evening we're together, it's like really sweet. So I think there's just like a new level of appreciation for each other. I think that's kind of the big change.
That makes sense. How long were you guys separated or separate? Not separated, but separate?
Almost 2 years. So
I was thinking, gosh, maybe good advice for people that need to strengthen their relationship, but maybe not. 2 years, maybe not.
No, that was quite involuntary.
Yeah,
a couple months apart to make you appreciate each other, I think that's good. A couple years, that's pushing it.
So you're still figuring out the being married thing. You say that like that's a process that you're going to complete and just check off the list.
I am a process guy, but I think that's one that's going to take me a while to get through.
Yeah.
Well, when you get the process figured out, do me a favor, send it over to me.
Yeah.
Now that would be a useful webinar, I think, for everyone.
That might be a business model that would have a lot more upside than anything you currently are spending your time on.
We're kind of joking, but as many businesses have, husband-wife teams, family members, etc. I mean, I really think it would be great if there were some guidelines for that, because people do struggle. I know, I talk to them every day and they struggle. Relationships are hard when you're working this closely in this kind of a business.
Very true, especially from work from home now. Your office with your spouse is like 1 foot away from each other.
Yeah, and you never get away. You never get that little break to make you appreciate the other person.
Yeah. You do need to build a little time away from each other.
Yeah. Especially if you're somebody like me, I need alone time. So I don't know, it'd be hard on me.
Yeah.
Liz, you know what today is?
No.
Here.
What is it?
Today is the day of the month that the Consumer Price Index number is published in the U.S.
I feel like you told us that last week.
No. That was the JOLTS report. That was
you're right.
Job openings that aren't being filled.
Yeah. All right, good. Show us consumer.
So we've been talking about inflation from 1 month to 1 month, and it keeps getting higher, and it's been 8 point something the last few months. I think it was like 8.8 last month. It's 9.1% inflation for this month.
Wow.
Or for last month, for June.
That's just killer, isn't it?
What is Tom? I'm sure that there is a measure or an exact definition about what an actual recession is. Is it like 2 months? Isn't it something like that? 2 months?
Yeah, that has to do with economic growth, and those numbers come out on a quarterly basis. So those numbers haven't come out for second quarter yet, but technically 2 consecutive quarters of what they call negative GDP is a recession. And quarter 1 they had a negative print, and there's a chance that quarter 2 will be. There's a lot of weird things going on the way they measure it. A lot of it has to do with imports and exports, and the exchange rate, the dollar is so strong against everybody else's currency that we're not exporting anything because foreign country can't afford to buy anything because their money doesn't go as far as it used to. I guess you're kind of on the other side of that, Chris. It takes a whole lot of yens to make a dollar now, doesn't it?
It's funny you say that. It was just on my mind. I feel really bad for people here being paid in yen, but I'm doing great. My businesses are US, so I get paid in dollars, and the yen is at like I think it's a 24, 25-year low now. So when I first moved here in 2017 originally, the yen was about 107, 108 to a dollar. Contrast that to when I'm living here the second time, it's now I think 137 or 138 yen to the dollar. So it's like I'm getting a 30% discount roughly on everything. So I know people buying houses here who are it's like they're getting a 30% discount on a house, you know? So it's pretty wild when your savings are in hundreds of thousands on something. It's big. Yeah, the euro just reached parity with the dollar, I think yesterday or the day before, which
That's
is
crazy.
the first time in a long time.
And there's some people speculating, and it might drop to, like 90 to a dollar, not even below parity.
Wow.
Ooh, that is the Eurozone is in trouble right now.
Something to be said when you can print your own money. That's one of the things that the U.S. has going for it at the moment. Well, see.
Oh gosh, going for it or going against it? Kind of depends on how you're looking at that.
Yeah. Well, it's good for us travelers. We can just wherever, we can take advantage of that. But not much traveling right now.
Well, okay, guys, let's get off this talk because we're just going to depress a bunch of people. People are already nervous about the whole recession talk, right?
There's a number that comes out tomorrow, and then we'll drop it. It's called the Producer Price Index, which is kind of the thing that is the predecessor to the Consumer Price Index. The producer prices, a lot of that is all the stuff that the manufacturers make that go into, and commodities and stuff kind of factor into that. And month after month, the PP, the
PPI.
Thank you, has been going up, and every time that goes up, it pretty much implies, or at least is a pretty good indication that you're going to see the Consumer Price Index going up the next month because the inputs keep going up. So we'll be watching that number tomorrow too. So we can talk about that. I'll give you something to talk about next week.
All right. I got it on my list. So next week when you ask me what day it is, I'll have the answer.
Right.
Cool. Well, we've got a little negative, but a lot of positive today. I've got a lot of positive notes for us. So I think it's a good talk. Yeah.
There's some irony here, though, because we're shifting gears a little bit. We're calling an audible because we were fortunate enough to have Chris to help us out. We were talking about what you've been working on, Chris, and Chris has been working on his plan in terms of how to make the best of a bad economy if we are, slipping into a recession. That doesn't necessarily mean that has to be a bad thing, for us as business owners. If we anticipate and plan properly, it can actually create a lot of opportunity for us. And I think that's what you've been working on, Chris.
Exactly. This really came out of a need in my own cleaning business. Me and my management team, of course, we speak every day and every week about what's going wrong, what's going right, and for us, there's just this kind of constant presence of negative news right now. I know the news is always kind of negative, but in particular, everyone is talking about a global recession, and so in our cleaning groups that we're all in, everyone's talking about a recession, a hiring crisis, and so on, and so. That kind of sticks in the back of your head and you start to think, maybe the leads are going to dry up. Maybe it's going to be harder to hire people. How are we going to juggle all this? Yeah. So we start having kind of an informal series of talks at the end of our management calls. If we could recession-proof a business, and of course, 100% recession-proofing anything isn't possible, but if we could have an ideal business for experiencing a downturn in the home services industry, what would that look like? And how could we start to implement some of that vision into what we're actually doing in our day-to-day here, so that when we look at our business from the outside, it's much more robust. It's got a safety net, and it's much more able to withstand a prolonged dip in, for example, sales. So we started just looking at past recessions in the home services industry and how they've affected, with a particular focus on the cleaning industry, how they've affected companies in that industry. And we started looking at some of the current trends in business going into the future. And we looked at 3 different areas that, we're doing okay on, but maybe in a recession, you need to have more of a focus on those 3 areas than you do even in a normal business environment. And we just started implementing kind of a daily and a monthly check for those 3 different areas that we could start to kind of continuously improve over time. So we've basically mapped out an informal plan that we're using, and we're starting to share with some of the clients in my VA company for recession-proofing your cleaning company. So that's kind of what we've been working on a little bit, and I thought it just kind of it fit in well with this week's topic.
Certainly is timely.
No kidding. So what are the 3 things, Chris?
Yeah, so I'll say 3 things and I'll jump off. And essentially, I'll go in depth on each. But it's a 3-step framework. It's not like a perfect framework. It's just 3 areas that are really affected in recessions. So one is typically there's a prolonged dip in sales. You see a higher churn rate. There's more cancellations. There's reduced frequency. So in general, on all fronts, both the marketing and the sales fronts, you're seeing a lot less business come in, and a lot of your lead sources are not as serious about booking. For things like move-in, move-out cleans, you may actually see an increase as people are moving out of their homes. Yeah. But for other things like biweekly, you're going to see a decrease. So for us, one of the big ones is how we maximize value on the back end and make ourselves much more, for example, profitable on each clean that we do. How can we increase the average ticket price? How can we work on our upsells? Things like that. We work on as well on lean operations. So there's a great book I always recommend to people that we can go over called Profit First. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's really big in our industry. But we talk about building an emergency fund. We talk about how to ask vendors for discounts, and we have templates for that we use. And we work on getting our key numbers going in the right direction so that we're able to run more leanly and increase our profit that way on each clean that we do as well, so that we have a bigger buffer than we normally would, and we're able to set aside a little bit more each month for our rainy day fund. So maximizing value on the back end is 1, lean operations is 2, and the third one is efficient operations. Because if you can increase the efficiency with which your team is working and the effectiveness with which they're doing work, your cost per hour that you're spending on VAs, or how many hours you need an office manager or production manager, for example, drops. So you're able to run a little more lean as well. So more efficient operations directly ties in to your lean operations, which directly ties in to maximizing the value on the back end. So it's a 3-step framework that's meant to be self-reinforcing. Each part should be playing into each other. So those are that's the 3 that I have in mind to kind of talk a little bit about today.
I love it.
Well, don't think you're just walking off now, because we definitely want to hear all the details.
Thanks, Chris.
Great talk.
Going to try that. Hey, Denise. Yeah. So I know Denise is very interested in this topic too. We had sort of a town hall meeting in our circles last week, and she was really into it. Yeah, so I know she's very intrigued, I'm sure, right now.
And we've been talking for a while now. It's kind of funny how the industry has evolved. There was a time that house cleaning companies would compare their performance based on top line revenue. How many homes do you clean? What's your, are you $1 million company or not? And all that's awesome, but at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line. Is what we really are doing this. And even business models were built in a way there's a ton of discussion about building your funnel and what are your conversion rates, and all that's important, but being profitable is what happens after you make the sale. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're kind of drilling on at this point. It's sometimes you can't make it up in volume, and when the volume starts going away, it's even more important to manage what happens after the sale. And that's what we do in Maid Central, so that's kind of certainly hitting my sweet spot.
That's exactly right. Volume is going to decrease on things like marketing sources, and conversion rate's going to go down. So you need to work on your conversion rate even more. There are a few ways that you can bring in new customers. One of the ones that we're exploring right now is acquiring smaller companies where the owner just says, screw it, I'm done. A lot of people are closing up shop like they did at the beginning of COVID. So there are some ways you can build partnerships with people in related services like, nursing or liquor stores that see a huge increase during recessions. There's certain industries that actually become more in demand during recessions. Pet stores.
Are you starting to see that now, where certain companies are just kind of saying I'm done with it because of like lack of demand? I've seen some people give up over the last year or so because of the labor situation.
Oh yeah.
So I guess there's a lot of reasons why you might want to quit. But are you starting to hear people like feeling that their demand is starting to dry out?
It's 80% hiring still. There really is a hiring crisis going on right now in our industry. It's probably the number one issue at this moment, and it has been the past year and a half, I'd say. Every group we're in, every day, you see 5 threads about trying to hire people. It's a problem. But I'm personally starting to see some people who are very small. They're 10,000 a month or less. They're not very deep. It's not often their full-time thing. People who have it as a side hustle, or they're a solo team, for example, a lot of them I see are leaving the industry. I don't know if I see bigger companies getting out yet. I think there's a point where you're big enough in your market that you're safe, relatively safe. And I don't want to say recession proof. I know that's the topic, but you're relatively safe from going out of business. You can reach kind of a certain size in your service area where you're the big fish. And I'm not really seeing that. But in my VA company, for example, we have a lot of cleaning companies. We're seeing a big increase in the number of owners who are selling to bigger cleaning companies, their customer list, or selling entirely and merging. So we've seen, during COVID, we had 2 or 3 companies sell and say, we're done. Like, they were happy with the service, but they were done with the industry entirely. Yeah. But now we're seeing, every quarter, there's a couple people starting to sell now. So there is a big increase in people, I would say, getting out. I don't want to, well, big is not the right word, because it's not like I see thousands of them going out or anything. But in my little circle that I know, I've seen an increase that's quite unusual compared to previous years.
Relative to what you have been seeing, you've seen an uptick.
Correct. Yes.
How about in your world, Liz? Have you seen any of them? I guess I'm asking because I really haven't. Not to say that it isn't happening. I'm sure it is. And if you're seeing it, I've been looking for it. I've been looking at data. I've been trying to see if there's been like a diminution of demand, and I've heard some people speculating about it and saying that they think they've lost some demand, but I haven't seen any data yet. I think it's coming. I'm wondering if we see a storm coming and we're bailing before the rain starts.
I haven't heard anything about anybody wanting to sell, get out of the business, except for locally, local companies, small companies. But in the last 3 weeks, we've had 7 different clients that are talking about their leads being way lower than they had anticipated. So one of the companies was expecting a slowdown. It's her slow time of year, but her slowdown is even much more drastic than she had expected in the last 3 weeks. So we've got about 7 companies that are, so not a lot, but and it's only over a last 3-week period. So, I don't really know. I don't really have anything more than that. It's like this tiny little sliver of info.
It's very tricky to know right now. It's so early.
So there's very possibly a storm coming, but I think the cool thing that you're going to be sharing with us here, Chris, is even in good times, you can be more profitable if you're like efficient ops, lean ops, and maximize value. It seems to me that these are business practices you'd want to adopt regardless of the economic conditions.
Yes. If people, I'd love to just maybe mention a little bit of the research for 2 minutes, if that's okay, because it's interesting. If you guys have a chance this evening or over the next few days, there's a couple different reports on past recessions in the home service industry and growth in the home service industry, which are really fantastic to look through.
Okay.
The Department of Labor and Harvard case studies, they're a good source for kind of like national level statistics around recessions, but they're not really good for our industry specifically. But Home Advisor and Angie, when they were two separate companies, they did separate reports. Home Advisor, I think one was in 2018 and Angie did one in 2020 on past research into how recessions have actually affected the home service industry and what the total market growth is going to look like over the next few years with or without a recession. So if you search Angie Home Advisor recession report, I forget the exact name of it, but if you search that, it will come up. It's a really detailed breakdown into our industry, and there was a lot of good insights around demand, around frequency, and other kind of tidbits that we can actually really work with. And they've been a really good source. I know they're probably the most annoying people in the world to call you besides Yelp, but they're in the home service industry as well, right? So getting leads from them is number one because they're trying to sell it to us. So
they have bigger numbers. They have a lot of data, so I love that.
And we're just individuals, but they have a whole research team that did a lot of research into this. So take a look at their report because it was very informative for us in our meetings with my team. A couple. Am I okay to share a couple things? Or?
Tom's already like Googling.
Yeah, while we're here, please.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take over. I just thought this is it's really interesting.
No, honestly, I would much rather hear you speak than listen to myself or Liz. I mean, we hear ourselves all the time. That's why you're here, Chris.
Yeah. We haven't heard from you in 2 years, Chris. Come on.
Yeah, it's been a while. Get us up to speed.
I've been a bit of a ghost in the industry recently. Just enjoying life.
Nice.
So I guess do you guys, you want me to start with some negatives or some positives?
Whichever one that you want to talk about, that's where I'm going.
Cool. Let's get the negative out of the way. Because then we're going to go with the positive and all the plan that we have. So,
all right. And we'll end on a high note. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We started on a bit of a negative one, so let's get it out of the way and rip the Band-Aid off. So there in the reports, the ones that I just mentioned, there were a couple things that I think are really important for informing your marketing strategy, informing your sales strategy, and how you talk with clients about service. So one of the big ones, which is kind of the ones that we all expect, is that there is a prolonged dip in sales, particularly for residential. There's less of a dip for commercial, I think, because there's contracts in place. Stability is a lot more important. But there is a pretty sustained dip in residential sales. But compared to other industries, what's interesting is the home service industry as a whole, they didn't have data specifically for cleaning on this, sees less, what would you say? It's less purchasing behavior change compared to other industries. So there is a dip in home service sales across the board, painting, lawn care, cleaning, everything. But compared to other industries, it's more protected during a recession. And it's actually, the cleaning industry in particular is one of the fastest growing of all industries that the Department of Labor ranked. So they have a rank list every year of the fastest growing industries, and specifically cleaning was one of the top ones. So between cleaning growing still and being somewhat protected from a recession compared to other industries, we're actually in a fairly good place to actually continue thriving and growing, even if there is a downturn. So
wait, this is the negatives, Chris? You're giving us the negatives right now? I'm loving your negatives.
Wait to get to the good part.
I know.
I'm trying to put a little icing on the top, Okay. So here's a negative. Here's a positive aspect to it,
Okay.
That is interesting. I mean, there was a time that house cleaning was considered a discretionary purchase, and I guess it's all relative, but I mean, like really, like maybe just a luxury. That was one of the first things you're just going to give up if money gets a little bit tight. And I'm curious. It seems like as time goes on, that's being shifted more and more to, I'm not going to clean my home any more than I'm going to be changing the oil in my car. I don't know how to do either. It's not an option. I'm going to have to hire somebody.
You'll find this interesting. It's just a side note, but I thought I'd mention it. It was either a Harvard or MIT Business School case study, but they looked at the 9 past recessions in the U.S. And the home service industry progressively with each recession got less impacted. So if you go back 9 recessions, the home service industry got hit really hard. You go back 7 recessions, it got hit hard, but a little less hard. You go back 3 recessions, it barely got hit at all. You go back to the minor one that we had during the COVID pandemic, and we grew. So the home service industry is getting more and more resilient decade after decade to downturns. It's just a really interesting side note that we're actually thriving despite everything going on in the world. So
you think the paradigm shifting from this is discretionary spending to we're an essential service basically. I can't get rid of my cleaning service any more than I can turn off the electricity to my home.
I think it's that we're spending a lot more time in our home, but one of the big things is that the 2 largest population cohorts that are alive right now, boomers and millennials, are all entering their life stages focused around home buying, focused around aging in their home. So there's a lot more need for home services as more people are living in homes and more people are aging and becoming elderly in homes. They need more home services as well. So
and that group of people still really cares about cleaning. And now they can't do it, but they still really, really care about having a clean home. So the boomers, having a clean home is a point of pride on top of, safety, health, all the other good stuff. But if they can't do it,
I forgot to mention. I'm so sorry. The research that I did is all focused on the U.S. So for people in Canada or the UK or France. I didn't tailor it specifically to that just because it's not the market that we're in. So I just wanted to note that real quick.
Okay.
Let's see.
So this is, I see what you're saying, Chris. This is so negative. I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle all this negativity.
Okay, I'll tell you some real negatives.
All right. It is with the bad stuff.
So there is a sustained dip in sales for residential, but you're also going to see a higher churn rate. It's probably going to almost double. It's not going to go quite 2 times. But if you're losing 5 clients a month, you might start losing 8 or 9. So there's a higher churn rate. You're going to see an increased dispute. So Stripe and some other payment processors had some interesting data around dispute rates per year. And so we looked at dispute rates in recession years. Stripe only had it for 1 year because they're kind of a new company relatively, compared to PayPal or something. But we looked at dispute rates and we saw a dispute rate increase sharply during recession years. And I know for us during the initial phases of the COVID pandemic, our dispute rate skyrocketed with Stripe. We weren't actually doing anything differently, same great cleaners, but people were finding issues with the smallest thing. And instead of asking for, a free extra or a re-clean or 10% off, they would ask for 100% refund, and if we didn't give it to them, they'd dispute it. So there was an increased disputes, and there was increased reputational damage. And what I mean by that is you're going to get more negative reviews in a recession than you would otherwise. So you have to focus even more on getting positive reviews than you would normally, because you're actually fighting against negativity rather than growing with positivity during a recession.
Right.
It's a little bit of a mindset shift, but it's something you have to be aware about, just because unfortunately our average star ratings on Google or Thumbtack or whatever is so important. And lastly, you do see a big damages claim increase as well with insurance. So people claiming cleaners broke something or claiming something is missing, you do see an increase with that as well. So on the residential side, you should expect to see those numbers change. So sales, churn, disputes, damages, and negative reviews are all going in the direction that you don't want them to go a little bit more. In terms of frequency of cleans, this applies to both residential and janitorial. People reduce the frequency of their clean. So if you have a lot of biweekly clients, They might go to monthly. If you have a lot of monthly, they might go to seasonal cleaning, like a spring deep clean or something. So there is a fairly big drop off in frequency. People still need cleans, but they just reduce their, they typically go down one level in their frequency with your plan. And with commercial, some small businesses, for example, if you're a gym, you might need you might have 3 daily quick cleans or something, or someone on the floor all the time. They might reduce that down to once a day. If you're a small office, you might reduce the scope of service and try and renegotiate contract terms. So there is some renegotiations that go on commercial, and there's also a decrease in frequency that goes on with commercial, but it's far less pronounced than it is with residential. So commercial is a little bit more recession-proof, if you will, than residential. Sorry.
I wonder if that's going to be true in this recession, though, just because the commercial space is that the landscape is so much different now since COVID, right?
Oh yeah. Well, this is Tom. If I'm correct, I think your company does more commercial. Is that right?
No, we're residential.
Okay.
But,
us too.
for space, commercial space, office, retail, even industrial, having it cleaned is maintenance. They refer to it as building maintenance. It's the same as they're not in business if they aren't cleaning it. So it really isn't negotiable. They will maybe renegotiate contracts and try to skinny down the scope of work and get some money out of it if they're struggling financially, but they're not going to cancel it completely. If they do, they're out of business.
Yeah, you can't cancel.
I think that's the main thing, is the scope of what's involved in the price, but they still need the service. So there's opportunity to make it work. I think it's such a great point, Liz, especially because so many offices are not being used now, right? So many people are working from home permanently. I know there's a little shift back into the office.
Yeah.
At least in the UK, even the government's pushing it really hard. They're like, you have to get back into the office. But I'm
wondering though, because of that, because it's not as packed or busy as it was, I wonder if they could fall into the reduced frequency to the same degree as residential might, right? Just drop it down a notch. So instead of being cleaned twice a week, they're going to go to once a week, or instead of weekly, they're going to go to bi-weekly, or going down one, since they have fewer people in their buildings, maybe seeing less need. I don't know, with COVID taking it up a notch again, that might change things. But
Chris, what is today? Wednesday? I think it was a couple of days ago, maybe Monday. Holland came out they passed a law in Holland making remote work the law. It's like, unless there's some compelling reason why you have to go into work, it's your legal right to be able to do that job from home.
Wow.
That is really surprising. I like it though.
And it's the opposite.
Yeah. Anytime there's more flexibility in work, I think it's generally a good thing for the workers. That's a really surprising law, especially in Europe. Things in Europe tend to move a little bit more slowly than in the US. So it's good to see that happen so early. I don't have any data for it, but it'd be very interesting if someone were able to find it who's watching, if there's a breakdown in the differences that different size businesses utilize different services in a recession. Like if you're a small business, like a small medical office, maybe you cut back more than a giant 500 employee company does, right? It'd be interesting. The research that I looked at was just commercial as a whole, just janitorial versus residential. They didn't differentiate by size of company. So it was detailed to get to midnights, but it wasn't a super, detailed 300-page breakdown or anything.
If you're a small business, like, what you're describing, yeah, absolutely. You can pull it in-house and reallocate some payroll dollars that you're going to be, investing in anyway to do the general clean on the office. But multi-tenant space, larger offices, that's not an option.
Yeah, I wonder if there would be a shift to in-house as well. Maybe they contract out to a company, but maybe they hire someone in-house instead.
No, that depends what happens to the labor market. Currently in the U.S., when there's for all practical purposes, 2 job openings for everybody looking for a job. That's, bringing it in-house for a larger organization, they're going to have to staff up for that probably. Most organizations are having a hard time hiring people to perform the activities that's their core product or service.
It's such a tough situation when you have enough business to grow but not enough people. Oh, talk about the ultimate frustration. It's a good frustration, but
Yeah, this is we've used the term unprecedented times, I guess, for a long time, and the hits just keep coming. The whole inflationary aspect of this makes it very unique. We haven't been really dealt with inflation for like 40 years. So the idea, I guess the term that they use for that is called stagflation, where the economy goes into a recession, there's contraction in economic growth, but at the same time prices continue to go up. And that very well might be what we're dealing with here. And what's the old saying? It's a recession if my neighbor loses his job. It's a depression if I lose my job.
Yeah.
So, the whole idea of a recession, there's certain people in the market that are struggling financially and they're having to make choices, but the lion's share of the people in a given market are still working and they're still going to behave pretty much the way that they were before. But the inflation part of this affects everyone. So, I don't have any answers for that, but I'm just pointing that out that, the data that we're working with here probably doesn't address the unique situation that we're heading into.
It's interesting you say that, and it just this isn't part of the notes I have, but just kind of an interesting thought. What we're talking about today is in part becoming more profitable. It's being more lean. It's tightening our belt a little bit. It's all the small changes in the right direction we can make.
Yeah.
Consumers are going to be thinking those same things, but our hope as a business is that they don't tighten their belt, right? So while we're tightening our belt, we're hoping no one else does because we want them to continue using us. So it's kind of a
or that if they tighten their belt, not in this area.
Not in this area.
Right? Yeah. Like in some other area.
Is Uber Eats or your cleaner more important? We're hoping the cleaner gets out on top there.
Yeah.
But part of this equation, I'm presuming, is kind of keeping an eye on your cost. You want to tighten your belt on the cost side, but the whole labor part of this is costing more now than it used to, and by all accounts, our labor is going to be costing more 6 months from now, a year from now, than it does at the moment. So, we want to be as efficient as we can and as lean as we can. But for most companies, we're going to have to pass some of that along to our clients, which.
Yes.
Well, I really want to hear more about some of your thoughts around lean operations and specifically lean operations, but also efficiency and what kind of maybe percentages are you looking at making? How much of a change have you been able to see or make, or what are your ideas?
You use the term efficient ops and lean ops, if I got that right. Can you maybe just explain the difference between the two?
Good catch. I differentiate between the two, but in reality, they're not. They're kind of two sides of the same coin, two different sides of the same coin. The way I'm defining lean operations is profitability. It's your actual bookkeeping numbers. It's how you're able to run your business with as little operating expenses as possible while maximizing the dollar value that you're bringing in. So there's a bigger difference between your operating expenses and your profit.
So when you talk about operating expenses, you're talking about your non-direct labor costs.
Correct. It's your software cost. It might be the cost. You could include cost of supplies, inventory, gas. You can include that too. But your base wages of cleaners, for example, it's probably not going to change that much if you're still as fully booked as possible.
So you look at each individual cost, but I presume you would look at them in aggregate. You mentioned software costs. I'm sorry, I'm sensitive to that. I see companies like trying to, be more profitable by lowering their operating costs by going cheaper on their software, and in doing so, they're spending 5 times, 10 times more than what they're saving on software and other expenses. So
yes. So this is where the balance comes in, and you guys will like this one for. So I'm not throwing you under the bus, don't worry. Actually, one of the things I want to touch on is software and tool expenses. A lot of people have dozens of subscriptions for their business to various tools, but and that's fine if you have the extra profit right now, but you won't always have that extra margin. But what you want to do is you want to find as many all-in-one tools as possible right now, because with an all-in-one tool like Maid Central, you do 10, 20, 30 different things that are really useful for a business owner. You're not just doing one thing, like Google Calendar, and then you have to have another for your booking site. You guys have a lot under one umbrella. So right now, one of the ways that you're able to save costs is by going for all-in-one softwares that do more than one thing that you need. So for example, your booking software might be able to book customers. It might be able to do the scheduling, charge cards, send email and text reminders to clients. That's one great tool that does 5, 10 different things. Another one is, don't go with something basic like MailChimp for your email automation. Go with something more powerful like ActiveCampaign, which is like a whole marketing automation software. It's not just emails. They have funnels that you can build in there. They have text campaigns that you can build out, right? So start to go towards the direction of all-in-one and bundled tools. So you can have 3 or 5 great tools that you're running your business on 90% well, instead of going for 25 different tools that you're paying for different subscriptions on, just because you want to try and make your setup perfect or whatever, right? So you're going to want to go for the fewest possible tools that you can use and still do the job. And that means softwares like Maid Central are going to become even more essential, because people are going to have to be canceling, half their subscriptions that they have right now. And that goes for marketing too as well. So a lot of us have, 5 different marketing sources that we're paying for. And I'm so guilty of this. I just can't stop exploring new marketing sources. But when we do a marketing ROI analysis, we look at every business quarter, which platform is giving us the highest return for our dollars, which has the lowest cost of acquisition, and so on. And for us, what we're doing now is we're kind of going with the 80-20 rule, where we're looking for the 20% of marketing that we're doing that's giving us 80% of the results. And we're focusing all our dollars on that one platform and reserving a little bit extra for the second platform that's also giving us business. Like for us, that's the Google ecosystem. That's Google My Business, it's Google AdWords, Google Local Service Ads. That ecosystem gives us 80% of our new customers. Mm-hmm. So we're maximizing our dollar value in that direction, and we're leaving a little bit extra for Thumbtack and for SEO, because those two are also big sources for us. So basically, you want to do a marketing ROI analysis and cut down all the unnecessary expenses in your marketing and change it all over the direction for what's working. And it's something, again, these are all things that you should be doing anyway, but they're things that become twice as essential in this kind of environment that we might be entering into. So that's kind of what I mean by lean operations, is it's the balance between spending on what you need to spend on, but optimizing every dollar that you're spending. So that's what I mean by lean. It's kind of a little bit of a minimalist philosophy, if you will, where you're not depriving yourself of a tool that you need or new business, but you're just making sure that it's actually going to where it's supposed to be going. And then the difference between that and efficient operations, just real quick, just to clarify, is I'm specifying efficient operations for the way that you run your business. So lean operations is the expenses that your business incurs to be run, and efficient operations is the actual way that you're running the business day to day. The way that you handle your to-do lists, your daily workflow, the way that you manage your teams, where your money is being spent in the office, and SOPs that you use. So lean is related to cost, efficient related to how you're actually working.
All right, so cost and methodology together. We want to be working on both of those.
Okay. Most cleaning businesses have a unique way of running their business, or at least, they think they do. That, well, that's not the way that I do business. This is the way that I do business. This is the way that we do it. It's almost like, I use the term, everybody wants to paint their own masterpiece, and I mean, that's good. And, you're taking the risk of being an entrepreneur. That's your privilege. But if I'm hearing you right, sometimes, especially if times start getting tough, it might be worth taking a hard look at that and abandoning some of the workflows and processes that it might be your own twist, but it might not be serving you well in a down economy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the number one skill out of any of this, if there's one thing you take away from the talk, it's that cultivating adaptability is the number one thing that you're going to need to get through a recession, because you're going to have to change the way you work. You're going to have to change the tools that you use, where you market, where you hire. A lot of things are going to change fundamentally in the way that you do business. So you have to cultivate an attitude of being able to adapt to whatever the current situation is, rather than sitting and being annoyed that it's not, it's not easy money anymore, or it's not, it's not the way you used to do business.
This is how we've always done it. This has always worked. It needs to just fix itself again.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really hard to get over that initial inertia, but once you do, it feels really good to put those changes in. I just went through a period of my VA company of that. We were very comfortable with the way we were doing business, and our onboarding process and the way that we hired VAs and everything. But we were hitting some pretty hard limits to growth, and we found that there was a client VA ratio that we had at that time where we couldn't really exceed that without the service declining in quality. And so we would grow, and then people would drop off, and we'd grow, and we couldn't break this balance. And it's because we got comfortable with our daily workflow and the way that we did things and the way things were set up. And I finally got off my butt, and I started to change some things, and we're in a much more growth-oriented place now again, because we've changed the way we're doing things. We outgrew that stage of our business and that way of doing things. And if you want to think of it in a positive way, it's a growth thing as well. The fact that you're just surviving in a recession at all when so many small businesses are closing is good, and it's commendable. But it's kind of like that whole thing some people talk about. You can go in a downward spiral or an upward spiral, but you can't stay in the same place. Yeah. I feel like a recession it really exemplifies that. You might survive in a recession, but you're slowly draining away. Customers are churning, they're not coming in as quick. You're starting to get to a break-even place. You have to be growth-oriented, and you have to start to be spiraling upwards again. And that involves changes to what you're currently doing.
So Chris, you're really in a unique place within the residential cleaning space. I mean, you run your own residential cleaning company, but you also have a VA service that you provide service. I mean, probably a number of industries, but a number of your clients, I believe, are house cleaning companies.
85% maybe. We do pressure washing and lawn care and stuff, but obviously being in the cleaning industry, it's mostly cleaning.
Okay, so you're able to. I suspect you have discussions with owners of house cleaning businesses along the lines of what you're sharing with us. I mean, you're providing some of the support, VAs to help with some of these key processes. Do you guys ever get into discussions of, you might be able to get some efficiency in your operations by changing some workflows? Is that a product, a service you offer, or is that like a byproduct of the service you offer?
It is. It's built into it as much as we can. So one of the things we do with new clients is I have a delegation vault I give them access to if they want it, where I have a whole series on how to work efficiently in your company. So we break it down as a whole productivity system that we use. I covered some of that in our last talk a little bit. That's kind of taken directly from.
That was 2 years ago, Chris.
That's right. Yeah, and you've had a lot of guests since then, so you're like, what's this guy?
Remember he did the 2 parts. I remember it was really good. Yeah, I remember he did hit on a lot of this.
You know what they say? It's not what someone said. It's the feeling they left you with, right? It's kind of like that. Like, I know Chris was talking about something, but
it was awesome. I know it was awesome.
I really liked him.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, we build it into when we're onboarding people. We have a whole delegation vault and process that we take them through for how to work efficiently. And I'm always talking with clients about different recommended systems they can use for different areas. And we kind of tailor it as much as we can to people because we have a dedicated VA. It's not a service where there's a whole team attending your business. You work with one person day in and day out. So they learn the systems and the tools that you're using in your business. They learn how you quote with clients. They learn how you follow up. And every business on the planet is going to have areas that they're weaker in compared to the ones that they're stronger in. No one has full balance across all of them, although it's a great goal to have. And so we make suggestions. We do check-ins with client at day one, week one, month one, at the 1 year anniversary. We do check-ins at different points, and we make suggestions based on the way their VA is working. We say, hey, look, we don't want to tell you what to do in your business, but here's 3 areas that we'd love to help you on. These tool for this, tool for that, a way of doing this. If you implement these, we really think it's going to be really positive based off what we're seeing in other markets in your industry. So we do provide that. It's kind of informal. It's not like a course you can buy. I have the local business MBA, which has all my systems and stuff, but it's not just systems, right? It's just, that's a part of it.
But it does sound like some best practices that you're recommending to people, like people that are successful. We see them using this. We see them doing this.
Yeah, all the time. We don't want to just be like a middleman. We want to be well, the way we view it, we're kind of it's a long-term partnership with each client. I sincerely, I mean that. That's the way we view it. It's not just a client that we're billing every month. It's a partnership. We want to be with you guys for 10 or 20 years if we can, right? And so we want to integrate ourselves and work with you closely. So if we can help, not just on sales and marketing and daily operations, if we can help you get set up and running more efficiently, if we can save you more money than you're spending on us, that's a wonderful place to be in that relationship. So we're always trying to make ourselves as useful as possible in different areas.
So do you ever, I guess my experience, a lot of times, I mean, everything you're sharing with us here at a logical standpoint makes all the sense in the world. But when you really get into making tough changes within your cleaning business, a lot of times there's fear and emotion and a lot of other things going, that you're competing with. What can you share with us in the last few minutes that we have here to help people take what logically makes sense and actually fight through the other things that get in the way of actually making it happen?
So you're wanting a little bit more kind of business philosophy, mental side of things?
Well, yeah, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I just, in my experience is you tell people something that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense, but they're not going to implement it because it's hard or it's scary. I'm afraid I'm going to lose employees. I'm going to lose customers. Whatever I'm doing has worked so far. If I change it, it might not work anymore. And
a good example is everybody understands logically that you need to raise your prices, right? Where the prices for everything's going up, we're probably going into a recession. You need to raise your prices. Everybody's like, yes, yes, yes. Did you raise your prices? Well, not yet because blah, blah, blah. Well, I have to wait. Well, I can't afford to because of this. I'm afraid I'm going to lose this. So how do you help people get over themselves, or do you?
Sure. I can give a couple specific steps in a minute, but for me, this is more on the business philosophy side of things, and I know everyone has their own philosophy of doing business.
Yeah.
But for me, it's all about balance and efficiency. For me, and I promise this ties into your question. I won't go off too much off track. The reason I started my business, it wasn't to make a lot of money. It was to have as much freedom as I could in my daily life to do what I wanted, to travel, to be with my wife, and so on. And that necessitated a very efficient and lean operation. I couldn't be in the office 8 hours a day stealing the stuff. I had to be in the office, my computer, in my tiny little apartment corner. But I had to be in the office, so to speak, for an hour or two a day, because that's when my team were awake. So the nature of my lifestyle forced my business to adapt to me. And what I'm seeing right now is a lot of people are adapting to their businesses. And I think we need to reorient. We need to reorient ourselves in the right direction, and our business to start to be working for us again. So philosophically, what I mean by that is during a pandemic or during a recession, of course, they're different. One can tie into the other and so on, as they are partially with supply chains. But the mentality that you have to take in your business is totally different than in a normal environment. One of the things you can work on to be able to implement this work is to change your mindset just a little bit from being overly concerned about dropping every client that you can, and taking more of a numbers-based approach. So what I mean by that is, if you have let's say you have 100 biweekly clients, or just to make it super simple, like you have 100 biweekly clients, each client is like $120 every clean. Maybe that's a little bit on the low end nowadays, but just to make it simple, and you raise your price by 15%, let's say, so you're raising it by what, $12, $6, $18. So they're going to be, so it's going to be $138 a clean now, right? So if you raise it by 15%, you're probably thinking the worst case scenario is like 25% of my clients drop me. It's too expensive, right? Your thought process is that if you raise your prices a little bit, you're actually going to come out behind rather than ahead, because you're going to lose enough clients with the price increase that the loss from those clients is greater than the gain that you'd make from the price increase, right? That's kind of what's going on. Even if people aren't verbalizing that, right, that's what's going on in the back of their heads, right?
Right.
But what you don't realize is you're losing out more by staying at the same price, because inflation's eating away at your profit margins. All the prices and tools that you have are going up. Your cleaners are going to need a higher rate. So if you're staying at the same price, the loss that you have by staying at the same price is most likely in reality going to be greater than the loss that you lose from a few clients with the price increase. So it's sitting down and actually having a little bit of math on the table in front of you to work out what the probabilities are of a loss and a gain for each change that you make in your business. So one thing I like to do is I recommend that people have a 3 to 6 a month emergency fund at a minimum. And they say, oh yeah, that's great, but my operating expenses are $12,000 a month. How can I just get $36,000 for a 3-month emergency fund, right? Where's that money going to come from? And I say, what you're going to do is you're going to email every vendor that you have for every tool, inventory, everything that you have, every vendor that you deal with as a business cost. What you're going to do is you're going to email them and you're going to ask for a small discount. You're not going to ask for like a year free or 50% off. You're going to ask for between 5 and 15% off your base price that you have with them, because you want to stay with them, but your expenses are high. 2/3 of them are going to say yes, at least temporarily. Maybe they'll give you 2 to 3 months free. Maybe they'll give you 10% off your monthly plan. Take all of the savings that you get from all of those vendors and put it directly into building your emergency fund. So you're basically redirecting your sources to building a safety net instead of growing again. Whereas in a normal environment, you might take all those savings and reinvest it back into marketing. You're reinvesting it into your emergency fund. You're reinvesting it into making sure that your company isn't going to go under on a moment's notice. So what I'm saying here is, in order to get over the fear of changes in your company, you need to be able to take a numbers-based approach so you can rationalize and think out what each change in your business is going to do. You need to take an adaptable mindset in terms of changing the way that you work in your culture. If you can do those 2 things at a minimum and increase the efficiency with which you're working, I think you're going to be so much better positioned, just from a mental standpoint, to be comfortable making changes in your business and know that you're going in the right direction. Sorry, I know it was really long.
That's awesome. It's funny how quickly an hour can go by.
How is it already an hour is gone?
Or 2 years for that matter. I can't believe it's been 2 years since we've done this.
Yeah.
Chris, if anybody wants to continue the discussion, get more information, or learn more about the services you provide through your VA service, I believe this is the website they would want to go to.
That's correct. We just did a site refresh. So yeah, it's InoVALocal.com. And they can get a receptionist if they need just phone-related work, or a virtual assistant if they want actual admin support. And if they want some support improving efficiency, if they want some support, they can use the exact systems I use in my cleaning company. We can help them set that up.
I'll drop the URL in chat so everybody will have that. Awesome. Any last thoughts here, Chris?
I always I really love when I get on with you guys. It's always really fun. A lot of interviewers are, they're like question, bang, question. You know, it's very direct. It's very strict almost, if you will, with the structure. So it's really nice to have.
Prepare.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say, I know an hour went by quick. I talked briefly about this 3-step framework that I have. And some of the thoughts around the future. I know we didn't get to go into those details. I have all these notes available. I'll post them in the group if that's okay, or send them directly to you so everyone can have those. Since we didn't, there's only so much you can do in an hour, but I want to make sure that you guys have a specific list of steps that you can do.
That'd be great, Chris. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you want to share your notes with us, we'll post that for download on CBT.
Cool. Yeah.
And on Cleaning Profit Builders too, Tom.
Sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Well, it was a blast. It always is.
Well, thanks so much, Chris. Tell your wife we said thank you for letting you come on here, spending some time with us. I know you guys cherish your time together.
Nah, she's still asleep.
She's still sleeping, right? I forgot. It's only 7 a.m. over there.
Usually it's the other way around. She's a flight attendant, so she's always getting up at 3 a.m. And I'm like, why are you waking me up too? But this time it's the other way around. This time I got her. So.
Nice.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Bye, y'all.
We'll see you guys next Wednesday, 5 o'clock Eastern. Bye-bye.